Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Florida Sound Archive podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Kaiser, and we have another exciting episode for you, bringing together members of the band Curtains out of Orlando, Florida. They are here, Mickey, Mike, Wes, and John. I feel like I'm introducing the monkeys. Hey guys, welcome in. How are you?
We good. Yes. We have Mickey, Mike, John, and Wes, and that not
And then we also have Mark, who's
And,
Mickey.
and Mark and Mickey.
Same personality, just different names.
When did the lunch boxes come out with all your pictures on them? Does that happen anytime soon?
That was 1986.
We're trying to hammer them out right now, but
It's a thermos decided.
Okay. Well, in addition to talking about curtains, this episode will also spend time talking about the story of the Orlando band Shyster as well, which both Mike and Wes were a part of, and Jeff and Brian as well. They will not be here for the episode, but they also were a part of Shyster. And we may get into some other cool stuff too. Mickey was also part of the Orlando punk band Laughing Boy. So first and foremost, let's take a moment to talk about where you're recording this episode. So this is the studio where you guys practice. Is that right?
yeah. We've always done living room rehearsals, the whole time through. But then after I had children, living room practice became a little bit difficult. And my wife politely requested that we move it somewhere. And there's really not many practice spaces around Orlando other than in people's houses, as far as I know. I mean, does anybody know any?
Yeah, but there's this one studio
warehouses.
called Zeus Apollo, man. It's kicking out some pretty amazing stuff.
Zeus Apollo is where you want to put your money
That's
down.
pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to invest in a record.
Yeah.
We used to practice at the 2020 building on Fairbanks, which was just like a whole floor of bands.
Shyster
And
days.
then we used to practice on Amelia downtown in a porn studio.
Yes.
And then we used to, where did you practice, John?
By UPS in Longwood. For a very long time.
Storage spaces.
There's
John practiced a lot of
there
porn.
were some office buildings, some storage spaces.
That
a
Mingo?
lot of hot, Mingo Court.
Hot Mingos.
There's
A
so
lot of
many
hot
different
mingos,
like storage spaces where we used to practice, and even Curtains, or actually the new Lowe's before Curtains, practiced at Michigan Storage.
Oh, yeah. That was also, we were both
Grave
in
Return.
Grave Return together. For the
Yeah,
the
we
first
shared that
record.
practice space, and interestingly,
Yes.
before we became a band again.
Yeah. How has that changed over the years, considering that some of you had been playing music for since the early 90s? So how has that changed over the years with the places you can practice, or maybe some of the studios you could record in? What are some of the differences from some of your experience over these last 3 decades?
Well, it's gotten a lot cheaper since our singer pays for everything.
There's no place to practice now.
There's
other
no
than
place to
houses.
practice.
I don't know of any. Maybe there are. But
You
no one
create
told
your
us.
own.
Yeah.
So I created this space here for us now that I'm like, old and just want to do this without worrying about where everything is going to be. Wes and I were in New York for a while, and we always rented space by the hour.
That's actually where we learned how to dye our beards. So we look younger.
Yeah. Is that
We could do it by the hour, anywhere. Just bring guitars. All the amps would be there.
by
We
the
practice.
hour.
Yeah.
there you go.
It wasn't
Was
beer
college
dying by
included?
the hour. It was music practice.
I did most of the shoe polishing.
But this is my backyard, so we have a nice place where we can just all leave our stuff, and moving equipment is obviously difficult. So
Right.
Yeah.
Did all of you guys grow up in the Central Florida area?
Yeah.
That's a
I,
great story
Yeah.
in very different ways, but yes, we all did. I'm Maitland, College
College
Park,
Park.
Longwood.
Pine Hills.
Pine Hills.
Baby. This is
So-
our real OG right here.
Yeah.
In our own ways.
Yeah.
Representing like 4 little spots on a map of Central Florida for sure.
We came together in a large brawl.
It was Warriors 2.0.
We had to pay each other back for the band shirts we tore. So
We're still
that's
paying them
when
back.
Now I think most of mine have been stolen. But
Together at some point,
yeah,
much later.
we told Johnny to get tattoos on his arm. because
Wes and I
we don't have any more band shirts.
The first time Wes and I got together was on a dock in Maitland,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we played Hey Joe on acoustic
Oh,
guitar.
Hendrix. Oh,
And
yeah.
Wes got disgusted and like walked inside, and I was just like, "What happened?"
Mike had like a nice curly mullet going at the time, man. I remember
That's how it
that.
began.
Yeah, and that's what
I
started.
think he had a Slayer shirt though, so I gave him a little credit for that.
Okay.
I was like, Wes, come play for Shyster. We have a band. Actually, I didn't have a band name, but Wes came up with that, and then we started playing that in
Okay.
I didn't know that.
1996.
I know.
No,
I did.
1904.
Yeah, sorry. It was me and a friend of mine, Courtney, and we sort of were looking at names and couldn't stop laughing at that one. So
Yeah.
there was no drugs involved.
Never.
Officer. No drugs.
So that's the origin of the name Shyster, Wes. You came up with the name.
Yeah.
Kind of. Well, with my friend, and then I said it. I think Mike was a little bit pissed off, but also loved it. But you know,
That's always the way I am.
he
I love
basically
things and I get angry.
he kept all the money after that. Did a lot of lawsuits came out of the Shyster situation. A lot of very litigious activity.
Right.
And he's the old man,
Yeah.
the dude with the briefcase on the cassette.
Oh yeah, say that's the Shyster right there.
Yeah, that is. That's like that's
Stuck it on me. Like I'm the Shyster.
He's the
Ah,
So
or maybe
he's like, this is
say
perfect
tired.
for Mike and his shit. Yeah, just throw it out.
yeah.
What do you remember from the first Shyster show you ever played?
Mike
I
didn't.
have a
I was
story.
there. Mike did not turn around and face the drums the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, you were so scared you wouldn't face the audience.
No, I faced the drums.
He was like Jim Morrison. He
But it was
learned that
with-
from Val Kilmer.
It was with Laughing.
Yeah, it was. We
It was
were
with Laughing Boy because
Yeah.
Jim was my friend who was a singer in Laughing Boy, and then I met Mickey through him. It got us the gig at Club Nowhere,
Yeah.
obviously at Club Nowhere.
Yes.
And
I
it,
remember-
it was amazing. It was
Yeah.
freaking insane. There were like 6 bands. We made a shitty flyer, and we played Club Nowhere nonstop after
Yeah,
that.
thank Tyrion. Tyrion Amy. Tammy and Aaron.
Tammy and
who
Aaron.
owns Club Nowhere. They brought a lot of Fat Records bands down at the time, and actually we played with Green Day there at some point. One of my other bands. So a lot of like upcoming stuff. I mean, this is back when Green Day was still at Lookout. A lot of it was happening in this tiny little corner of Orlando, and we, I think, with the first Shyster show, and it turned into the first Shyster tour in Orlando, where we played about 10 shows in a row at Club Nowhere. That was like kind of our Beatles Hamburg moment. So, but John was the only one that got laid. So
Thanks to Tammy and Aaron. 'Cause they booked us all the time there, and we opened up for a lot of fucking cool bands at
yes,
Club Nowhere.
yeah.
GRI, face to face, no
Yeah.
effects,
That's how we met
Jawbox,
face to
all
face,
in like
you know.
a year.
And
Yeah.
from Club Nowhere, we got on tours
Yeah.
with those
And
bands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how we got the Broadway show.
that
wasn't-
and all the musicals.
Madam Butterfly, baby.
Now, I think you mentioned, right, that Shyster played that show with other bands and Laughing Boy. Was that Laughing Boy's first show, or did you guys play before that?
We'd played before that. We actually had to call ourselves Crawl Space before that, so we played quite a bit. And then once we figured out there's another Crawl Space, that's when we changed to Laughing Boy. But we'd played probably about a year or so before that.
Crusted Shut, Crawl Space, and then Laughing Boy.
Yeah.
And somewhere in
that
there,
was where I learned to love music, watching them play again and again. I would go as a fanboy just to all their shows. And then when Jim finally was like, yeah, you have a band? Okay, you can play here. And then that's how it started.
we had a
Wow.
downtown restaurant called the Magic Walk that had this huge atrium space that used to do shows. And,
Oh yeah.
that's where I first saw Mickey slaying the drums. He was playing with a band called Hoof and Mouth, and they did a song called "Been Caught Shaving," which was kind of an ode to Jane's Addiction at the time.
Yeah, and Vincent Van
I
Gogh.
was like, I got to play music with this guy. Something
Been
got
cut
to happen. Been
Yeah,
cut.
Been
I
Cut.
think it's been cut.
Big cut
I
shit.
think
Yeah.
it's been cut 5. So.
Oddly enough,
I
I
don't
think I think that's the first place I saw Denature
Oh yeah, I used to play in another
at that
band.
atrium.
That
Yeah,
was Wes's
Yeah.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I owned it.
We took him out
All
of
the
the
bands.
nature and put him in Shyster, but he stayed in those 2 bands for a while.
You know what it's like to have to manage a band when you're 16 and
And he's left-handed.
make sure the drummer does everything that you want.
And he has
That's
a
hard.
tail.
Okay. Now I'm left-handed.
tailbone.
what
It's
happened.
an extended tailbone.
I went to the doctor and he said, "You're not ambidextrous. You're left-handed." Just keeps happening. I don't know. Maybe I'll be around. We'll see.
John, were you going to a lot of those shows too when they were all going on at that time?
Yes. In fact, around that time, my first band, Commonplace, I was probably in like 10th grade. We started playing at Club Nowhere as well. And so that kind of brought us into the scene. I think I met Brian early on.
Shyster played with Commonplace many times at Club Nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's where we first met John.
Yeah. I met these guys from Mike. It's funny that you said that you were kind of a fanboy of like Laughing Boy and those bands, because I felt like that with Denature and Shyster. Like when you guys kind of came on the scene, we were doing our thing, but I was like, oh shit. There's, like it made us kind of reassess, and we were young and kind of figuring out our chops. But Club Nowhere was essential for underage bands,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
especially
We're all
like on
underage.
Sundays, right?
Yep.
That's
Still,
how
that's the only place we play.
that's how we
Can
got
play.
John drunk, and we had him sign an indentured servitude contract.
Right.
So he's got to be on every record with Curtains now.
Yeah. Yeah, this deal was signed a long time.
What
Yeah.
other clubs were around that you were playing at, or perhaps were you doing any house parties at that time as well in this early period?
Where did we play back then? We played Downtown Jazz and Blues Club.
Yeah,
It became Sapphire
outside.
Supper Club.
Right.
Yeah.
And then that was basically that. And then of course Barbecue Bar Front Room
Yes.
was a place to play. We played Skinnies a lot.
Oh yeah.
Skinnies.
Skinnies, which is
Big.
now like American Gladiators on like Mechanical Bulls.
Yeah. You can gladiate a bowl.
Used to be a place where we play all the time. And Shyster did a lot of shows at Skinnies just for like, whoever was passing by and a group of friends kind of deal.
I'm pretty sure we did a couple at Go Lounge as well, which
Oh, yeah.
Wall Street Plaza's like first sort of venue.
Yeah, rock club right
Yeah.
there.
I mean, they had a Yab Yum, a coffee house. So if you're doing like some Nick Drake or something, you could have played there. But
And to throw another old name out, Chris Sapone, who became a bass player for Shyster after Wes left at some point. He was dropped out of high school and started booking like strip mall empty spaces. So he had Brody's Warehouse and he had Suburbia, and these two venues actually got a lot of cool touring bands. I mean, I saw Promise Ring and Jimmy Eat World
Yeah.
at strip mall
But
by the
you
FBI.
What was the one? Oh, FBI. That was
Yeah,
another
it was
one.
near the FBI.
Okay. That
And
that
then,
was Brody's.
Yeah, and the cops would always show up because there was no one of any
Something
like
like a
age to
page
like run that thing. And there would be complaints, the police would show up, and then Chris would call his lawyer stepdad, who would come show up on a motorcycle and usually talk the cops out of like, letting the thing disperse peacefully. That happened more than once.
That's badass.
that's how we roll.
That was an awesome dude. That guy was amazing. He used to just drive around. He got like disbarred from
course.
being a lawyer. And then he
Had nothing to
became
do
a
with us.
delivery. He did delivery for Jin Ho Chinese restaurant, which is where Wes worked and where Brian worked
Oh, yeah.
and where Jeff worked.
Mm.
3/4 of Shyster worked at Jin Ho. And then this
Awesome.
lawyer who got disbarred started delivering there just because he loved to be on a scooter motorcycle.
I think
And
Brian.
he always had a white styrofoam cup full of vodka.
Yeah.
He would just deliver Chinese food, and he just loved life. Like he
We
would
gotta
show up and
take that
save our
Florida
asses from police at Brody's Warehouse, strip mall, when we were doing shows.
Got to give him.
Wow.
Got to give Ty and Fawn Lee props for employing half of the Florida hardcore scene and punk scene.
Oh my god!
John Willie from Greening worked there as well.
Can't tell you how many times I heard
Big Chad from Blue Devil Tattoo.
trying to get a hold of those guys.
Yeah.
May I take your order? No, I'm just calling. Is Jeff working? Is Brian working? Is Wes working? That's amazing.
She used to ask, "Who's on tour?"
Who's on tour?
Okay, you're not on tour. Come in. You work. So
You gotta work. You gotta work somewhere, I guess, right? And it's good.
That was a spot.
I took
That
a
was a
year
spot.
after winning the Fantasy Five, but six other people won, so I didn't get enough money. I'm still planning on suing for that one.
Great idea. It's
Great job.
business ventures, just sort of speculation.
What were some of the crowds like in the early years? The people that were coming out to the shows, what was that like? And if you can kind of describe that whole scene at that time.
Club Nowhere was always crowded because it was all ages. Anytime you have that all ages thing, all the high school kids want to be there. And we were high school kids basically. So it was amazing. It was fun every time. And then as we got out of high school, it became a little trickier with good shows and bad shows. But with the industriousness of like Wes and Brian and Jeff to book, and they harassed people They harassed
Mostly
people
me.
into booking us shows, and we got all these opening gigs like at Club Nowhere and at Edge, and at
I mean, it was the
Social-
'90s, so harassment was
Yeah.
still PC.
It was cool. And we got so many opening gigs. We were like the opening band for
Mhm.
punk rock bands that came
Mhm.
through, which was
Yeah.
a dream for Shyster because we played in front of hundreds of people regularly because we were opening up for 7 Seconds, for The Offspring, for
Oh, yeah.
really a bunch of bands.
I think we
Religion,
played
SNFU.
SNFU, Bad Religion,
Yeah.
all these bands we opened up for.
Bouncing Souls was a fun one.
Was Shyster ever recorded at all by any labels at that time to perhaps consider getting signed at any time?
We did sign to a label that was out of Texas.
Yes.
And they were kind of like the first band label that came to us. They were called Off Time. And it was run by the drummer from a band called Horace Pinker, who was kind of like a band in the 90s. And so we were kind of dumb, to be honest. And we were just like, okay, yes, thanks. And we just signed right up. And we signed right up we went to Texas and recorded in Texas with Brian and Melanie, his wife, like Brian from Off Time Records.
Yeah.
And at the time, Off Time Records also had At the Drive-In. So they were like,
Right.
they had a label.
Was it Dynamite?
And we
Boy?
were in Dynamite Boy
Yeah.
and some European bands. And they were doing a cool thing.
That's good company.
So we were like, yeah, let's jump into this.
Yeah.
But ultimately, At the Drive-In jumped off the label and we never really did. We just kind of like put out some EPs on other labels after that.
Yeah.
Off Time more or less imploded. And we were sort of left without really much support in that regard.
I think we found most of our records on eBay. After
I
that,
know.
So yeah.
It was a situation, and I understand labels like don't make money either, right? So they're trying to figure out how to make some money off of the bands they put out.
Right.
But between us and them, there wasn't like really much of a bone to like split.
I think it's a labor of love. I would speculate that hopefully they broke even off of the At the Drive-In stuff. But once Mars Volta happened, I guess that would be, hopefully something that happened for them. But at the same time, we kind of didn't have enough money to drive out to Houston and keep recording. So we ended up doing a lot of stuff in Orlando, piecemeal work, 7 inches. And stuff
We
like
got an
that.
offer from an amazing label called Man's Ruin, and that was Frank Kozik, who died recently. And so after our first full length on Off Time, we were just kind of adrift. And then we had this EP that came out with Man's Ruin, which was a really cool kind of moment and coincidence. But so that was our second label foray, but they weren't a label that were like picking up bands to put them on. They were just putting out an EP for us.
Yeah.
But that was very awesome.
Yeah.
With
Definitely.
the Kozik artwork that went along with it, both for the album and the promo.
And although they were a label and a studio. I had a guest on recently who was one of the house musicians for King Snake Studios in Sanford, Florida. And more on the jazz and blues side because Bob Greenlee, who owned King Snake, was a blues guy, right? So talk about your experience recording there. What was that like?
Oh man, I loved it personally. I feel like this is Rick, right? Rick
Bailey.
Rick Bailey. We'd feed him a case of beer and 2 packs of cigarettes to keep him going the whole day. And
You think of Ace Moreland.
Oh, is that Ace?
Ace Moreland
I think both of them needed a case
That's
apiece.
true.
I don't know. The fact of the matter is though that
That's right.
we came in for I think it was 5 days, maybe 4 or 5 days, and basically it was just okay, let's put you in this corner, throw these mics on you, and get it done. And it sounded great to me. It was pretty much kind of more of the raw essence of what we sounded like in rehearsals and at certain shows.
It was an awesome laid back vibe there.
Yeah.
We got that connection because my parents were friends with the Greenlees. So as a little kid, I used to go out on boats with Bob Greenlee and Sonia Greenlee and their whole family. And I still play basketball with Andy Greenlee. And I've gone to shows with Martha Greenlee, Martha Kay, and Bobby Junior is in Chicago, I think. But it was a family connection. And so when Bob was like, yeah, come out here, we got a studio, let's record it, we'll do it on tape. We're like, sure, let's go, let's try it. And we really loved that experience recording with Shyster. So New Lows went back there and did our first record there as well. So I had 2 sessions there. One with we did Shyster, and then one with Ace Moreland, we did the New Lows, the first New Lows record was recorded there too.
I think that was Mickey on the low road.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Wes wasn't in that one.
No, I had
You were at the end.
gone to Houston to sell like shoes or something at the time, but I came back shortly after my hacker roommate got busted by the FBI, which I can talk about now.
Enough time has passed. It's okay to.
Yeah. I could give you his name. I think it's Loophole, which is probably like 2,000 hacker names now since the 90s, but he was the original Loophole and introduced me to DJ Screw, which was interesting because that became a thing again in the mid 2000s. But beyond that, though, back to the band.
I mean, King Snake was amazing. It was so
Yeah.
fun.
That's
So
cool to hear about that connection. I didn't realize it was so deep, but that's pretty cool to hear about that. And think about outside of the studios, right? Thinking about the first time you played outside of Orlando, was it somewhere in Florida that you had a chance to play? Whether it was with any of your bands, I imagine that I know Shyster played outside of Florida quite a bit. So, just within Florida, though, what do you remember about the first time you played outside of Orlando?
Good.
Oh damn, I can't remember the first time. I used to drink a lot of oldie, and I don't know how we got it, but we did. But basically, like the first thing I think about Shyster wise is when we went with Bouncing Souls and SNFU to I think it's the Milk Bar in Jacksonville. And not only the sound engineer was like really cool, fixed my bass for me. I remember the singer of Bouncing Souls was getting paid back for a night we did in St. Pete the night before, and found rotten bananas in his jacket pocket, which he kept in a suitcase. But apparently he had been throwing like full water bottles at all of SNFU in St. Pete State Theater, like from the balcony essentially. So I got to witness the moment where he realized he just stuck his hand in these and it just smushed them completely. He was digging, trying to figure out what it was. He saw the moisture come out of the pocket, from the inside, and he was just like, face went crazy, and he went and yelled at everybody in SNFU. But that's the first thing I remember.
The early stuff I remember was Jacksonville Beach, Jay Gordy's, and a couple other spots like right on the beach. And we also like always had great Shyster shows at Jacksonville Beach and the Milk Bar when we were like hooked up with there's a pool hall. And then Jay Gordy's was an upstairs place, but Shyster shows in Jacksonville Beach. Like if we do more Shyster reunions, with maybe OG members or something like that, one of our thoughts is like, let's go to Jacksonville and play, because Jacksonville Beach was always like so fun and ridiculous. And Hardback Cafe a few times was amazing in Gainesville, but Gainesville is kind of hard to book there. State Theater when we were touring with bands, it's amazing in St. Pete. And Churchill's in Miami was a very like legendary experience for me. When again, Bouncing Souls and SNFU in like the mid 90s.
Well, and got to mention the Black Eyed Susan.
I was just about to say Daytona Beach.
That was like, I think the first time I saw Les and Jake, and what's his name?
We played with Les and Jake in a little coffee shop.
Roger
in a glass window right on the street.
Roger was on top of his like Ampeg 810s, jumped up to jump off and like smashed his head into a pipe, knocked himself out for about 5 seconds. Then he jumped back up and caught right on to where he was in the song. I don't even think he knew he was knocked out.
So we go to Black Eyed Susans for just to watch shows, and then we also go to play shows out there, which were always amazing. Saw like Youth Brigade there.
Oh man,
we also played Swinging Utters and you guys.
And I used to go see Crusted Shut and Laughing Boy and Crawl Space play in those same venues. Just traveling and seeing the different kind of spots around Florida. There's so many. Melbourne had shows. I can't remember the name of the place, but
St. Augustine. I mean, we used to sit there with we had a cup and like a couple of acoustics
out in front of the old fort.
We played Hey Joe again, It's like,
after those early sessions, really came in handy.
Handle that old spark.
And we go talk to the cute girl in the ice cream shop who was listening to Bob Marley. That was our jam.
Oh yeah, we play that.
Remember the ice cream shop? Yeah.
What else we played? That was it. We played Sluggos once in Tallahassee.
Oh yeah. Actually, I think there was Pensacola had some kind of like,
Pensacola.
That place was like, it reminded me of did you ever hear a Mystery Funhouse? They had like a pitch black room with carpet on the walls or something that you had to feel your way through.
No.
It was being in an insane asylum, and that is what Sluggos look like to me, man. I swear to God, there was a vampire living under that stage, but
And we also played the old schoolhouse in Vero Beach.
Yeah.
That was
You
a
guys
nice
ever
street on
play
there.
Yankees in DeLand?
No.
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 Did you play Monday, Tuesday? Happy days?
The old schoolhouse is a spot that has come up, and I know that when Todd Rockhill had come on from In Like Flynn and Thunderclap, right, and amongst many other bands, when he came on, we were talking a bit about that place, and Discount played there, a lot of other bands, of course. So what do you remember about playing at the old schoolhouse?
It was just like a very super like DIY vibe, run by kids. There were no like adults around basically, and that was a really cool vibe. It just felt super hip and kind of like all kinds of bands played, but it was always a place for something new. When like emo and kind of weirder punk started like filtering in, I think I associate people from there like Andrew Chadwick.
Yeah, I was gonna say Chadwick, and then I remember I think I saw Mercury program there, which I was
Bands
kind of
like that.
impressed by. That was more like math
yeah.
rock to me, and I
They're
just
awesome.
didn't realize that was happening down here. What about Gus? I think maybe Drew
Gosh,
Michael.
that's Drew's band, yeah.
Yeah,
Drew we played with mostly in Orlando, but we
Okay,
played with
yeah.
him down there. I don't remember, but I remember playing with him at Club Nowhere a lot.
there was some other place in Melbourne that I know we played a show at. I think it was like a Rotary Club, or it may have been a VFW, something like that.
I know there was the place in Vero, the women's club. Did you play there?
That's it.
That's the spot.
Yep.
Where was the schoolhouse? Not in Vero?
Was it in Fort Pierce area? That
Yeah,
one,
okay.
maybe?
That's because
Back in the Shyster days, there was a whole movement
Yeah.
of Fort Pierce
Oh, yeah.
friends who
Yeah.
came to Orlando that hung out with Shyster all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, we had
Reese, who now does culinary shit all over Orlando, and Andy and Marley.
Marley went on to, I think she was a singer in like a folk band or something in
Yeah,
Portland.
A good
she
folk man.
did a really good voice. I kind of forced her to do a cappella on an open mic night. And the funny thing was that like all like 50 people that were in there just stopped saying anything. And I think she thought everybody left the room. And then she like kind of got silent and her eyes got wide and everybody started clapping like, yeah. And I was just like, that's amazing. So
Awesome.
yeah, it was really good. And I told her that she can never do that again because there's no way I can keep up with it. So
Did Commonplace ever play out of town?
yeah.
Not commonplace.
You guys were Orlando, Maine.
Orlando only. Yeah.
You guys,
I can't even remember though. We played Melbourne, but like
Yeah.
I don't remember where it was. It was like a strip mall or something.
I always remember driving out to see Mickey's band play when I was little, and the road out there, of course, like 520, whatever it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And it was with 2 lanes, and it was all fucking dark as shit. And our friend Rob, who'd always drive me there, had a VW Beetle that didn't have barely like any lights on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were like
Good
literally every time just like praying to survive on the way to Melbourne on these freaking podunk like big country roads and very dark.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of the names of the bars though. Even when I was driving, I had a show there recently, and I remember the places, but I don't remember any of the bars, like the areas and stuff.
That was where I used to go out in a hockey mask with like a big machete sometimes. Just kidding. Maybe.
maybe. The and just speaking of Laughing Boy, there's the demo tape.
Yeah.
There it is.
This is one of my personal favorite demos from just Florida in general. And what do you remember, Mickey, from making this tape and the recording of it?
That was recorded by, they were just talking about the Fort Pierce crew. That was by Nick Kulikowski from Wolf Daddies. Remember those guys? He recorded that. That was up at we talked about playing Magic Walk. That was in the same building upstairs that Magic Walk was in. I think Nick just got an 8-track or something. We did it for like 150, $200, something like that. And he had that and I remember a CD of sound effects, because I remember we did like toilet sound effects and stuff on there. Typical kid
Enjoy.
stuff. Yeah. Typical kid stuff.
What's
Yeah.
funny is Mickey recorded those in his bathroom.
Sold it to the
He made money off of this guy's studio.
Both ends.
Yeah, both ends, get it?
That was a good experience though. I miss Nick.
You guys didn't really put out much else, right? I mean, it was the demo, and was there really anything else that officially came out from the band?
Yeah, we were on Corey Sheridan got us on a label called Medical Records out of New York, and he took us up there, and we actually played one of Bouncing Souls, I think, first shows at one of the State University in New York in Oswego. But I think he released maybe like he gave us 50 records, and then we never heard from the guy again. Like you're saying, we sometimes I find the Battle Hymns of the Retarded CD or 7 inches on eBay, but that's the only other thing we ever put out was that.
Was that on Medical Records Battle Hymns?
Medical Records. Yeah.
Was that just like a single?
Yeah, just a 7 inch. That was that.
Yeah.
We recorded that at what was Ignafo's place? Real time. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta give Ignafo.
Yeah,
props.
please. Yeah, because that's where Shyster did our first 2
Yeah.
EPs. We're in Holly Hill, near Daytona Beach at Mark Ignafo's Real Time Studios.
Commonplace recorded.
Commonplace, Adventure Immortality, Denature.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's because
Smashing Pumpkins.
he actually had
And Bloodlet.
when you asked him to do things for the sound, like turn up the balls and the character, he did it for you.
He had a numeric equivalent.
Not without making fun of me. I mean, some guy that might have asked for that, but it's all good.
You guys ever recorded The Difference though off of Winter Park with Sean Shannon and the Big Shot?
Mhm.
That's where we did our very first demo. And I remember we went in there to record, and he didn't like us. He was like a big metal guy, and we ended up he's like, here, listen to my stuff. So we're paying money for the studio. We're listening to Sean Shannon's Big Shot demo for like an hour because he was like, he's fed up with us.
Wow.
I remember that was when Jim forced me to use the Rototoms. You remember those years? Yeah, good times.
I think he works.
Recording is super stressful, and it's like always on someone else's time, and you always got to negotiate. That's one of the reasons why I made this practice space is so we record here. And actually, Kurt is working on we're almost in the final stages of recording a full length for Curtains that we did right here at this room. So
We just got to meet our Amway quota this month.
What's with Curtains, since we were talking about Curtains, as well. So everyone is a part of Curtains, right? And who's here today?
Yeah.
this is Curtains.
Yeah,
This
This is Curtains. So when you think about this band, what are some of the differences? Thinking about some of these other bands in the past, and some, obviously still can play, right? Shyster still plays out here and there. So what is the difference for you playing in the band, a band like Curtains now versus playing in some of the bands of the past that you were in?
For me, Curtains is just new songs. All those other bands are old songs. Everything that we create now is Curtains. So it's just what's happening at the moment. But it runs a spectrum that could relate to some of the bands that we've been in. It's got like some Shyster feel. It's got some new lows, mid-tempo-y kind of jams. It's got some Sunday morning revival slowness, but not a lot of that, but a little bit. So it's all kind of continuous and not all that different, but it's just what's new.
Yeah.
And then adding John in has been X factor because, Mickey and I and Wes have been making music together for a very, very long time. So I've never made music with John before the last couple of years. So his influence guitar wise is changing the sound a lot too.
And John is like a Gainesville veteran, essentially.
As well.
Yes, the Shaking Hands, the Whore, Gainesville, and I got into this whole thing just to battle the tinnitus, man, basically, and essentially the back pain. It's more of an endurance test at this point.
Fighting fire with fire, really. At that point.
Yeah. Plus, nobody wants to play with Mike anymore as far as bass goes. So, just kidding.
No one texts me back. So
yeah.
Wes does it once in a while.
He's like, everybody goes to me. Come on over, dude.
Has Curtains played any shows outside of the Central Florida area at this point?
We only do that if Mike cooks barbecue on the smoker. So.
We did.
did. We played in Ocala,
And
Yeah. Ocala.
Vero Beach. We went to St. Petersburg. So we are well
We've
traveled.
done Monufest.
That's in Newport Richie, bar that we put on our little wall map.
Fest.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
put a pin in Newport
Yeah, we
Richie.
did Fest.
Yarn.
We played Fest. Yes, that's in Gainesville.
Done
So
Fest a couple-
we did Fest, and so
We Lowe's did Fest.
we have yet to cross the border. Do we?
No, we don't
Not
think we've
this-
been.
Wait a minute.
No, we haven't.
We're gonna go play in New Orleans sometime
Yeah.
soon.
Or
Didn't you also play the Underground Fest too?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
That was super fun.
Florida Underground Fest.
Yeah.
How do you like playing some of the festivals versus playing a show where it's just a couple bands on the bill?
I mean, I thought that the girl who was trying to figure out whose license got lost was pretty hot. That was a festival show. So
That's more of a festival type
Yeah, you know.
situation.
Festivals are fun. We get to see old friends a lot of the times. We get to see bands that you'll play one-offs with some bands, but at a festival, it seems like a homecoming of sorts.
yes.
And you get to hang with old faces, and that's a good time.
That was amazing. I mean, this is the 4th Florida Underground Festival, and this is the first one we played, and it's actually the first one I've been to, and I was just like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
But you can just jump from venue to venue to venue and see all the bands that you always see posted all over town. And coming through in Florida all the time. And I have to hand it to Dial Drive and Jacob and the other guys who do that. It is badass.
Yeah.
And it's got to be a shitload of work. And I don't know what they get out of it other than having all these bands represented on one street.
I bought a
2
t-shirt.
days.
I bought a t-shirt.
And a t-shirt. I bought a t-shirt too.
Yeah.
I saw a gold bullion fall out of one of their pockets. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So they're doing all right.
Galleons,
They're doing all right.
Yeah.
Probably don't even know.
It is amazing. It's so fun. And it's just tons of people there.
Very well organized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From like behind the curtain or whatever, but setup times, everything, load in, load out, just on.
I don't know who the sound guy
Very
was,
cool.
but the fact that he had a bandana on made me feel like I was at Woodstock, even though I'm in Uncle Lou's, you know?
We played at 3 p.m. and it was one of our best shows ever.
Yeah.
Yes. Like there was so many people that showed up, which was great. I mean, I figured they'd all be hungover at that point, but I mean, they came out anyway. So
And Mickey was crushing.
Yeah.
He was just like
he was crushing on all the girls. That's exactly how it goes.
Nice.
When you're playing some of those festival shows, who are some of the Florida bands that you most look forward to seeing play? Whether they're more legacy bands or bands that are new and current today.
I was really psyched to see Thunderclap, but then what was the shirt you had on? The
Slap
name-
Reality.
Slap Reality. God, yeah, that was
That's
great.
old band that I remember from way back when I
Yeah.
first started following Crusted Shut, and they had that Slap Reality stuff
Yeah.
from like late 80s, early 90s. Crazy.
Mm,
They played
That was the best.
right
Yeah.
after us or soon after us, and they were
awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Did you ever see them before, or that was the first time you had a chance to see Slap of Reality?
I saw him. Jim Jacks took me to see them.
Really?
Yeah. I saw him way back in the day. Yeah.
Who else? We like Billy Doon a lot.
Yeah,
We see
Billy
them
Doon's
play,
good.
but so many bands, and Mickey loves all the bands. He knows all the bands. He drags us to venue to see the bands that he likes.
Again, and I hear that.
Mickey's more of a scenester because his kids is grown.
Yeah, I get to go out. That's true.
Yeah.
So he knows what's going on more so, and he's
Mike's-
got 3 bands, so he's always out doing his own thing.
Mike's daughter does
Too
wear
bad.
the
Solo band
Okay.
If she needs to do karaoke,
when he's
we gotta
socializing.
get out of
it's
this.
just a solo band. I call it a solo project.
Yeah, solo project.
What about outside the area in terms of other parts of the state? Are there any particular bands that you're a fan of, or even past or present, that maybe even you never got a chance to see, but you wish you could have back when they were in their prime?
And before we go there, can I just bring up the Gangly Youth from Melbourne? One of my favorites, and I missed
yeah.
the last show. Sorry, guys, if you're listening to this, please come do a show with us.
Angly Youth from Melbourne.
Yes.
Yeah.
12-hour turn from Jacksonville was a fun one. It was
Supposed to be
friends
outside
ours
of
in the
Florida.
Shyster. No, in
Oh,
Florida.
in Florida. Oh, okay, sorry. So I'm on
Caught Fire, St.
Yes,
Petersburg.
Caught fire, yeah.
Caught Fire's killing it.
Uh,
Oh man, Thunderclap.
Spanish
Gainesville,
needles were
obviously.
cool.
Janitor Torturers.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they're coming again.
They're
Man,
coming back,
yeah.
so we want to open up for Janitor Torturers if you're listening to
I
this.
just love Rain Sanction from Jacksonville.
Oh my
Oh
god. Section.
oh
Back in the day,
Wow.
seeing Naomi's hair.
yeah.
Radon,
Yeah, Radon. Yeah.
Panther
Gainesville,
UK.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Are you guys gonna
Radon,
see the
Spoke.
Riddlers?
Spoke.
Yeah,
Oh, that'd
Spoke
be
was a good show.
freaking awesome. Lake Brantley.
Yeah.
We used to play with Hot Water Music way back when.
Yeah.
Man, who
Those
was
are the good days.
Yeah.
Dave Cintron's band? Who? Gotta bring
Mercury
up Cintron.
Project.
No, Mercury Program was from
Program.
Mercury.
They're Gainesville.
The Mercury Project, I think, had something to do with Nellis Air Force Base, but we don't need to get into all that. You know,
There are tons of freaking amazing bands around. Tons of them.
Some of the bands you mentioned also had ties to Jim Faherty, right? Who was one of the big promoters of the Central Florida scene back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And also there's that new exhibit, which I'm sure you're aware of too, at the at the Orange County Regional Museum, which Jim actually was a guest right before it opened. He was a guest on the podcast with the curator of the one of the curators of the exhibit. So what were your thoughts on all that? Because you've known Jim for a long time and you had a chance to play some of the clubs that he promoted for, and talk about that for a moment.
Promoting is because he was in a really terrible goth band in Orlando when they first started. They were kind of like Flock of Seagulls, but trying to be a little darker. And Jim had like long flowing hair, and he tried to do kind of like a Flock of Seagulls Danzig thing.
It was like
and
murder of
it flopped.
something.
It flopped.
It
hard.
flopped.
So he's like, okay, I
Seagulls.
can't beat him. I'm going to join him. He started booking shows at JJ Whispers
Oh yeah, baby.
when he first got into town. But no, his influence from there has just been unbelievable.
I think JJ Whispers invented Nickel Beer Night or something. I don't know. But
Yes.
Yeah.
And Rock from Orlando emerged out of Nickel,
oh yes, it merged.
obviously.
So
But he booked us in a lot of shows when he was doing the
Yeah.
social and then the
Sapphire
Sapphire Supper Club, obviously.
Our-
And that was amazing for us.
our drummer from Denature, who ended up being the drummer for Bloodlet later, was Charlie King. He was very somehow connected with Joel Guy, who was one of Jim Faherty's employees, and we ended up getting a lot of shows through Figurehead.
Mhm.
Earth Day show,
Or the First Dead.
For his Dead
Dead.
show, with Adventures in Immortality, a couple
Yeah.
other like
Mm.
there's definitely a lot of local bands, Bro Closet, things like that. And that was more of a festival type event, but at one venue, I believe, at Beecham Theater,
Yeah.
which I guess ended up, yeah, it's still Beecham. So
Honestly, I don't even know how we got on all those shows we did. Faherty did some of them, and Fat Harry did a lot of them.
Fat
If
Harry.
you know, Fat Harry was also a promoter who did a lot of the Edge shows and
Oh, yeah.
Beecham shows. And every once in a while, we like when we opened up for Bad Religion and SNFU,
yeah,
which was a huge change for us because from there we toured with SNFU and Bouncing Souls because of that opening act.
Mm.
And that tour led to a lot of other things. So you could also trace it back to that one show.
Mm.
The only reason we played that show is because I don't know. I don't even know how, because I flew back from North Carolina for that show. We showed up at the Edge and Fat Harry said, "You're not on this show. You can't load in. You're not booked on the show." And I'm like, I came down from North Carolina. We're all here. I thought we were booked on the show. Someone said we were booked on the show. And so we literally had to talk to Bad Religion. And we talked to Greg Graffin and Greg Hetson. And they both said, "You can play," which was fucking cool as hell.
Wow.
yeah,
And they said, "You can play if you play at the time the doors open."
right.
You know, the doors open and the band start half an hour later or an hour later. We had to play at 7 sharp. So when we started playing our set, there was 0 people in the room. But by the time we played 3 songs, it was freaking 800,000 people in the room.
That is
It was insane. It was insane. And we started our set to an empty room because they told us we had to play at the moment doors open because we were never on the show. And I remember Fat Harry was the one who was like, "No."
Yeah.
But somehow Bad Religion said, "Let them play." And from there, we ended up touring after that with SNFU, which is one of my very favorite bands in the world. So
Yeah.
that was freaking crazy.
Yeah, and then I guess Fat Harry ended up putting us on with Offspring and Pennywise
Mhm.
and Back Shack and
It was actually Offspring
Saw those.
and was it Pennywise?
I think Pennywise. Well, I know Pennywise was opening for, I think Offspring, or was that Bad
I
Religion?
think
We
Offspring
had
opened
for
for
7
Pennywise.
seconds.
Offspring opened for Pennywise. I remember
Me and KT helped you guys load that
Offspring
show.
singer taking off his MTV Sucks shirt because he wasn't allowed to wear it on stage, and I felt a little
Nice.
depressed
Dexter.
about the lack of.
He had
pop rock.
like cornrows.
Yeah, yeah.
But Faherty's still putting on shows. You know, he's doing this concert series for his history moment.
Right.
And doing this, you know, big thing coming up, which is a lot of work and a lot of fun,
Mm.
which we might want to mention on your podcast here today a little bit.
Oh yeah, there's this show we're doing.
Let's talk about that.
Okay, well,
Okay.
Mike is forcing me to do all this freaking bass work. And
Wes
then
has to play in every band.
everybody else gets a break but me. Not the
Mickey's
bass
playing in
player.
every band, but sporadically.
Yes, and John is gonna cover basically the slot for a lot of the original stuff that he grew up loving, which we're pretty honored to have him along for as well. Because he's our Gainesville nugget, if you will. So Nobody else from Gainesville wants to play with
From
us.
Orlando.
Gainesville Nugget from Atlanta. But yeah,
Yes.
we're doing a Shyster set, kind of curtains, doing Shyster, but it's a lot of Shyster because Wes and I like always played in Shyster
Yes.
until he quit and Chris played. But that was the very end. And then Mickey played in Shyster after Jeff left, and Jeff was the first to leave the original Shyster. So it was Mickey, me, Wes, and Brian. But Brian jumped ship, Wes jumped ship pretty much in the same week.
Yeah, sorry.
And then we just repopulated it with other people. So it's been a mix of different things. We even toured with Shyster without Jeff or Wes, and me, Mickey, and Henry, and Chris.
I mean, if you're wondering how Mike pays for all this stuff, it's because he invented metadata. Basically, he learned that from the Shyster model. If you repopulate, you can have Shyster 2.0. And then suddenly he was talking to Bill Gates one day at a show.
You don't have to have a lot of money up front to go on tour.
Yeah.
You just need enough to get to the first place.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first website that Shyster ever had?
You do?
Yeah.
I'm asking you, do you remember the first site?
Was that
No, there was never a
Impact
Shyster
Press?
website.
Not the
Until
real
there was
web.
there was never a Shyster website. Was there?
John made it.
I don't think there was the internet when you guys were playing, was there?
I don't know, man, but if we got your credit card information, it wasn't
I don't know why I thought there was like a GeoCities or an Angel Fire site that was the band had once upon a time, but maybe not.
You could have been right. I don't know. I would never have seen it.
I've seen a lot of YouTube channels that post stuff that like I'm kind of like, cool, thanks for the promo.
It's
Like,
amazing. You know, someone might have made a Shyster
Yeah.
site. I don't know.
I kind of remember Craig talking about some guy, because that's
Probably
who runs the
Craig
Shyster
Mixer.
page on
Yeah,
Facebook,
Impact
is some
Press.
guy from Germany, right?
Yeah, someone from Germany made a Shyster site.
Was it spelled like Scheisse?
It's already in English for them.
Yeah, I know. It's
Another person who was really important in capturing the scene going on in Orlando was Jim Leatherman, right? The photographer. He captured a lot of what was going on. And there were other people, I'm sure, but he was definitely one of the big ones. A lot of the photos in the exhibit in Orlando at the museum are his. How important do you think he was in capturing a lot of those moments? Because I know he captures some shots of Shyster too, right?
Oh yeah.
Still is. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Jim's active. God, it seems like every night taking pictures.
Yeah.
And he's talented, man.
Fantastic. I mean,
There's I mean, if you, I guess I don't know how to say it, but I mean, I think there's been a few people that are definitely, they want to document certain things, and Jim just seems to be everywhere all the time. And it's a passion, it's a labor of love thing, you
Yeah,
know.
he loves it. I can
That's the
tell.
thing, though.
It's
It's
his
not,
band.
yeah, it's not a problem for him. It's just what he does and loves.
And also helps that
Yeah.
he's like probably the nicest human being on earth.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So everyone who
Yeah.
runs into him just like
Yeah.
is happy to see him. It's just constant like love
Yeah.
fest
Exactly.
being around Jim.
I mean,
and, he's been a
most-
friend for a long time, so it's awesome always when we see him, and it's always a blessing
Mm.
because he's at like every show, not our show, but every show.
Most
I get a little nervous when I
Yeah.
see him. I'm like, all right, tighten up. Tighten up. You know,
we always check each other for small bugs and
It
you
is
got any
not
boogers?
good.
I'm good. Okay.
Jim is
Yeah.
unbelievably skilled, but we present him with challenges.
Yeah.
sometimes he's gotta like, you know,
He has to get some,
Make this
some
look
interesting
good.
angles.
he's gotta
on it.
Photoshop out the boogers. It's all on my shirt. and stuff.
Spit,
We don't
sweat.
handle these
Yeah.
photos.
I think a lot of his talent though stems from the fact that he started as a bass player.
That's
just
true.
throw that out there.
Mm,
Jim is a bass player.
perhaps.
And bass players are great. I mean, they're awesome people. Very nice.
Decent.
You
A
know,
little slow.
Yes.
Besides the photography side of things, talk about the zines and publications too that kind of help get the word out for not just Shyster, but any of the bands that you've played in over the years, from the past up to the current. How important is that, and who are some of those zines and publications that have helped with spreading that word?
I can give a shout out here for Craig Mazer, who was like the fifth Shyster,
Remember.
basically, because he had Impact Press. Before that, he had Inbred Records, and he used to do a mail order with Inbred that had quick little blurbs on bands and stuff like that. But then he expanded that into Impact Press, which was available all around Central Florida. Had a lot of music reviews, show reviews, cultural and political commentary. Amazing labor of love, speaking of, for him for many, many years. And Craig actually booked Shyster tours.
Yeah.
This man who was like networking, he's working one, building his magazine two, and then networking in an age before internet. with Maximum Rock and Roll, Book Your Fucking Life.
Mm-hmm.
And put Shyster tours together that we actually followed around the whole freaking country.
And we're not talking like
With a MapQuest printouts
day,
of your Bible.
Yes.
They weren't week off and work
Map.
tours. I mean, he's doing like 3 weeks to 6
You lose
weeks.
that
6
spot.
week tours. And Craig,
We got to see the country because of him, essentially.
and his magazine was really a big part of the 90s in
Yeah.
Orlando. Ink 19,
Yes.
Orlando
Yeah.
Publication. Was that
Orlando
from
Weekly too, which is still
Melbourne.
happening.
I was from Melbourne.
Yeah.
Ink 19 was Melbourne, but we got it all over the place. And I had tons of music.
Right.
And I had all my clippings of Shyster stuff from Ink 19.
Mhm.
And
Good
And a
old
little
Jam magazine.
scrapbook with hearts all over. it.
Jam magazine, jammies, are they still going
Yeah.
on?
No, I don't think
We
so.
actually,
so.
Ryan Ledford and I went to the first
Jammies.
Jammies, and when they announced that Shyster was in the running for best rock band or something like that, it was just the two of us jumped up like, yeah, and then sat down and nobody knew who the hell we were.
Jam was
It was
not
amazing.
that was more of a rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. We did actually win like a
Classic rock.
jammy, I think, at some point. And I remember going on stage in downtown Jazz and Blues, and we had discussed playing "We Are the Champions" before going up there. Just this is a joke because I don't think anybody knew who we were still. So at least nobody there. I really feel like Gargamel should have got that one. To be honest with you.
We still
Yeah,
sing
remember them.
for every
Yeah,
practice.
yeah.
Just to get us pumped up.
And we cry.
That blood
sometimes,
flowing.
What did a Jammy Award actually look like?
I think there was a 16 mm projector playing. It's kind of like being in math class or something back in
The award-
1975.
overhead projector?
Yeah. Exactly, overhead shots.
I need some jagged glass.
Yeah,
and a little
then they would throw
embossing.
food coloring on it, and it was really trippy, bro.
We were fucking around, but it was awesome. It's amazing that magazines commit themselves to music scene.
They actually had like a full 500-seat auditorium, which was kind of impressive. And I remember one of the guys, he was like, he had the Kurt Loder haircut, who was from I think one of the WDIZ or something. He was the I want to say commentator because of the way he looked. He had like a tuxedo on with that. But I think it was more of an MC type thing for him. And he gave out the awards, and that was it. It was very like awkward. It was like an awkward MTV music awards at
Orlando
the time.
style
The first one was
1990s
like that.
vibe.
Yeah. I think by the third one, they realized that you got to get a liquor license. Otherwise, no one's going to be like,
Gonna be
into
sticking
it.
around.
Yeah.
First week I joined Shyster, you guys won Orlando Weekly's like best punk act or something. I had to go
Best
on
punk
stage for that.
act. I can show you what those awards look like.
Yeah.
Plaque,
I think
right?
John started that club, but he'll never tell us about it.
I think those are at my mom's old house.
What was it? At Mike's mom's house, we used to have cookies and tea for every rehearsal. Sometimes she'd let us get in the pool
We never practiced there.
and within 30 minutes instead of 45 minutes after eating. I'm just kidding. No, actually, Mike's parents were really sweet to me and let me live there between tours because I
You
was
lived there too?
horribly broke. Yep.
wow.
There's like a litany, the list goes on. So
That was going to be one of my next questions too, is thinking about during this entire window of time we're talking about, your families, were they coming to some of the shows and did they support what you were doing?
My parents would come to the first series of shows we did just because they were so curious. I remember after one of the shows, my dad was like, "What kind of cigarettes you smoke?"
I feel like they could be laden with guilt trips.
There's a little few, comments in there, but they were very supportive. And obviously, Jeff drummer lived in my house for a while. Wes lived in my house for a while.
Yeah.
So, my parents were just like, because my sister moved out and there was a room and they're like, yeah, bring your bandmates in. And we lived there while we were touring because, we didn't have money for rent or anything like that.
Yeah, and it was sporadic, the tours. The tours tended to be mostly summertime, I believe. I think we did
Not the
I
first
think we
year.
did
The big tour we did was in the fall.
yeah, so that was definitely because it was definitely cold. It's cold weather.
Do you have enough room for everyone, or do you have like bunk beds? Like, how'd you make that work?
We always crashed at whoever's house we met.
I had to sleep on a bed of nails.
In the van, we had a floor and a bench
Yeah.
and a loft in the van. So there's 3 sleepers in the van.
I mean,
But if you have 3 sleepers, that means one person's driving by themselves. So usually 2 people sleeping and 2 people trying to stay
the
away.
thing is, if you hit a bump wrong, you could break your nose on the roof. But and we got all the gear in there, so that worked.
We toured with our friends Bobby and Josh, and they
Yeah.
would drive it a lot, but they would always slam on the brakes just to fucking throw us. off our sleeping perches.
Yeah, these guys
That
somehow.
was shitty.
I'm
That was
really
really
sure
shitty.
Bobby. He owns a really successful graphic design company now, but back then he somehow convinced me that he was a sound guy. So we went on this tour with Face to Face, and he basically would stand up there with Josh smiling. I'd be like, "Hey, what's this do?" to the sound guy, and then that guy would end up doing sound anyways. He'd be like, "Yeah, it sounds awesome, man. Cool." And that's pretty much how they got on tour with us.
They knocked us off our stools quite a
Yeah,
bit.
Josh actually did a lot of photography as well, and he ended up working with a lot of like Jackass guys and Orlando Water Sports. Did a lot of like wakeboarding photography and video.
Nice.
So that was like where he ended up. I was briefly in a band called Simon with both of them.
Oh, yeah.
Another guitarist named Dave, and that was fun. We did some of those Orlando Water Sports like event shows, and a lot of girls with really nice well-fitting hats. Yes, the hats were very well-fitting.
Really beautiful, big.
Showed a lot of
floral
forehead.
arrangements.
Lovely
Lovely hats.
Yes, definitely. Just in case the parents are still watching. By the way, my father, who is a deacon at a Baptist church still, showed up for one of our shows, which just happened to be the one where I had two ladies that worked at clubs.
Of the night.
Yeah, rub together some things, the pairs of things they have for
Hats.
CDs. Yes, the hats got rubbed together. And I happened to look up just like this and see my father at the bar just going like this. Disapproval. And I was like, well, I'm in the right business.
I didn't know that your dad can do it already.
Yeah, he snuck in and did that. So, but
Nice.
I'll never forget it, partly for comic value, but also to know why we're not talking about politics or religion anymore. So
Some of the other bands that also kind of play into the story, right? And I don't know, you'll have to keep me on point here with like the New Lows, for example. Were there crossover members and who's in Curtains now that were also in the New Lows?
When Shyster finally sort of started falling apart, basically, we started this band, Sunday Morning Revival, which was a very slow, quiet kind of country, but also weird, all kind of shoegazy kind of stuff. With our buddy Ralph. Maybe you've heard of Ralph, is a big Central Florida musician who was taken too soon. But he was, Amadori. He played bass in that band. And then actually, I think it was both Ralph and Henry quit Sunday Morning at the same time.
yeah, that's Henry from Denature.
Mickey was playing in that.
So that was kind of a crossover in a weird way.
Do you remember how that band fell apart?
Well, there's an incident where Ralph walked his dog and never came back. But I
Yeah.
think Henry and you didn't want to play together anymore, and that's how that input. We were going to record with Jeff Nolan. We were doing that record, and Spanky came out of his room and said, "I don't want to be in this band anymore," and that was that.
Yeah, he kind of pulled the plug, and then just sort of split off. And I think I was living with Henry and Mickey at the time.
Yeah, we split up
and so
living together. Yeah.
Tyler Gray, who's coming down to play in this sort of reunion show on the 29th,
The next day.
who wrote for the Sentinel and played in a bunch of bands, wrote a book about Lou Pearlman. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Wrote a book about Lou Pearlman. He's a really amazing, interesting human being.
Hmm.
He jumped in because he had been playing in some bands. So me, Mickey, and Tyler started the New Lows.
Yeah.
And we just three-pieced it for a while and made a record, and it was super fun. All that stuff happened so fast.
Right.
We've been a band for like 8 years, and we've done, a little bit here and a little bit there. But when the New Lows started, we played for about a year and we made a record.
Yeah.
Because we were younger and we didn't have much else to do, I guess. We were practicing and we lived together. So
Yeah.
we were playing all the time. We were making songs, playing shows, making records. And we made a record. That was really what the New Lows were. I moved to New York right in the middle of that. And then Tyler moved to New York. So I started playing with Tyler in New York. And we got this drummer named Taro, who's a really cool dude. And the three of us played. And we got just members came and went for like 8 years.
I think that was
6 years in New York.
Is that odds?
Wes moved to New York. I ran into Wes in New York City on a street. Which was kind of
We were
fun.
actually.
Do you think he would have texted me if he would move to New York City? Or you think he might just like give me a heads up? I live in New York now too.
I saw
Old
him.
friend of mine, you know.
I saw him, We were watching.
No, I'm biking back from work. I'm biking back from work in the middle of Brooklyn, and I pass the street. There's a James Brown
Yeah, Vanderbilt
impersonator
Avenue.
on Vanderbilt Avenue in Brooklyn, going
He
out.
happens to be playing a show.
So I like hop off my bike. I'm like, damn, it's James Brown. And I'm like, there's Wes Snowden. He's like standing right in front of me. So I give him a bear hug from behind. Or did you bear hug me?
I got you, and then you're like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
my God.
Someone's grabbing me. Someone's grabbing me. Turn around. This guy's on the fucking street. He's like, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, I live here now.
Yeah.
So then Wes and I finally, after a while, we made a record together in New York.
Yeah.
Wes, why didn't you reach out and let him know you were moving?
Thank you, Jeff, for asking that, because I was always wanted to ask that question.
I told him I'd only do a record if I could sneak up on him in New York. So I had to do it that way. But, he forgave me later. I mean, he didn't feel the gun in his back.
He really wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
We ended up making a record together.
Yeah.
With the drummer from the John Spencer Blues Explosion, which was a very weird experience.
Russell Simmons.
Yeah, he answered a MySpace ad that I had.
Yeah.
Or no, it's like a Craigslist ad. And that was a bizarre day. When I'm going to work and I get like a text, I'm like, this is Russell Simmons from the John Spencer Blues Explosion. Are you still looking for a drummer? I'll do it. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And he's like, for this much money. I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
How much was he asking?
That's
about
that's
$3 million.
according to, that's
That's not much.
A couple Spanish gallons, he was hooked.
I'll have to look in my checkbook, but it was
Yeah.
it's a little more than I wanted to spend, but it wasn't too much that
Yeah.
I said no.
Yeah.
With all the different people you've played with over the years, how did you know this four was the lineup you wanted to go with for Curtains?
Well, everybody
kind of who was
yeah.
around.
We can still all afford to buy our own 6-packs,
Yeah.
and we live in the same town.
John's really nice, so
Yeah.
that was a cool added feature.
I mean, on the dark side of Curtains, I brought him in to calm the political situation down. There's a hurricane of brewing, and John's
Yeah.
like the fixer.
We all really hate each other,
Yeah,
but we
no,
hide it really well.
Yeah,
No, it's just these are people that I know who like to make music,
yeah.
and I like to do the same thing. So
We grew up together. We're like brothers.
it's very family.
Yeah.
And so we all satisfy.
You can tell by
collective
Mickey's
itch.
smirk that he's thinking about all the times he almost stabbed us with a stick.
Did you guys take the name from the movie Curtains?
Oh,
There's a movie.
There is.
Yeah.
But
It's Curtains.
I mean, I
I think
actually,
it's called Curtains.
When is it? When is it
again, it's on me. I did this, but my whole thing was I imagine like a guy getting pulled off a stage with the cane, around his neck, and it's like Curtains, that kind of thing. So like Curtains, I don't know.
Well, the New Lows is a very sort of like negative, depressing towards the end, kind of awful thing. But I wanted to keep something in that vein. Shyster's very negative. There's fucking criminal, like
But like a pop criminal, like wear a nice suit.
depraved, kind of the New Lows, like how terrible can it be?
Yeah.
But all these sort of close to the end kind of give you the reason. That's like why we play, because we have to like fend off our death fears and stuff like that.
I have no idea what he's talking about, but see, basically, there's a lot of girls with hats out there, and that's why I do it. But no, it's true. Like Curtains actually is kind of like we're getting older, you know what I'm saying? And by the time we're in that 55 plus trailer park, we've got to have a whole litany of songs to play for the people who remember us from the Curtains era.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So,
And in terms of film, in terms of connection, I don't know the movie Curtains, but I'd like to see it. When is it from?
is it a horror movie?
It is a horror movie from the early 80s.
Oh, really? Wow.
Wait, you're
I gotta
talking
see
about
that
H
shit.
O or okay.
Yeah.
David Lynch's Lost Highway.
Yeah.
He does these really slow, dark pans against curtains a lot in like closets, and so he's like sort of like weird, like fabrics that just looking at them gives you the deep creeps, and that there's something back there, but you don't know what it is.
And hopefully,
So
Patricia.
I have been inspired. Yeah, hopefully it's Patricia Arquette.
I think in every David Lynch production, there's curtains somewhere in it, right?
Like there's a lot of curtains in Lynch. And that's kind of part of something I picked up on.
Yeah, you were going to call us the Drapes, though.
Well, there was already a drapes.
Yeah.
I like the expression, the curtains for the drapes.
Yeah, and then we were thinking about the grapes, and then we'd play with the cranberries. You get a whole produce section together. I think we'd have a good festival.
Have you heard of the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
There's still time if you decided to do that, right?
Yeah. We're thinking, let's change the name of the band to Cool Beans.
Did you say time? festival, but I mean, we could think of a side bet.
I think Cool Beans
Small
was
thing.
great.
Rosemary, yeah,
Cool
that's Jim's new
Beans.
goth band.
When you guys aren't making music, what else are you doing? What's your days like?
Oh boy,
I play basketball. I actually play basketball at Faherty. I played with him today.
Mickey's, I think, is edibles and coding. John's usually,
Fly drone,
yeah,
hang out with my
Flying,
dog, my
airplanes
wife.
and drones. and
yeah, maybe some edibles and that too.
Levin on dogs for sure.
I cleaned a skunk's cage that had an infestation of roaches earlier this week, but
You're always doing that.
and I'm pretty sure that I could start my own
There you
cringe
go.
videos channel at this point. Mike Rowe would be like, dude, I'm not even hanging out with that guy. Like, yeah, I do maintenance at the science center, which just imagine experiments going wrong in different storage areas, and essentially it's kind of like what
Cafeteria.
Dr. Moreau back there. And I'm dressed in purple like an Oompa Loompa running around, like, all these big pipes and things I don't necessarily understand, trying to keep
Luigi.
the place from exploding. Yeah.
I didn't know Oompa Loompas were dressed in purple. Were they in purple?
Was it purple?
I thought they were purple.
No, I thought they're like orange.
Well,
Faruka.
oh, that was
He just
Veruca.
called you out. Wow. He's like, no, Oompa Loompas weren't in purple.
Well, I do look kind of like Veruca in the beginning stages. So.
Okay, I'll say Violet is the one that turns into the blueberry. That's
Okay.
yeah.
I know.
I was
Violet.
born in, never mind. but you're right. Okay.
Thanks for the gifts.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again. It's all the edibles.
You ever have anybody come up to you just when you're in a normal day that just recognizes you from playing a show or saw you somewhere and talks to you about music? Does that ever happen?
Well, speaking of that, I had somebody who recognized me at work who was a mother who I know her husband. And my boss said, "What's with you knowing all the mothers around here?" And I was just like, I don't want to get this kind of reputation, man. Like, just let me clean the roaches out of the skunk cage. So,
Please.
okay, I'll let Mike go now.
Not really.
That's bullshit. Yeah, listen, this guy, he walks around town and people
Yeah.
start like, I mean, there's like John fanboys everywhere. It's
People,
like,
when people hear Shyster, like, you playing with Shyster? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's more of a name recognition for that. And
No
you,
one ever, yeah, there's name recognition for Shyster. People don't come up to me every once in a while. Like I saw a band play at Will's and they were freaking awesome. They're from Gainesville. I can't remember what they were called, but they were kind of like a Irish rock kind of thing. And then I went up to them after the show and I was just like, you guys are awesome. Whatever, great show. And the guy was like, "You used to play in a band around here?"
Mike Collins.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Old
I didn't know him.
buddy. Yeah.
He was a guitar player. and
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, I did. And he's like, oh yeah,
Awesome.
Shyster. So yeah, it happens sometimes, but usually more like at venues and things.
Somebody,
Not when I'm getting my boba tea.
there was a band.
Or you run into like another guy from another band or gal from another band from shows you've played. Like you see people, you're like, oh hey, what's up? But
I was going to say, somebody recognized Mike and I from the New Lows, but didn't know that we were in Curtains until we talked to him after playing a show with them. It was another band that did Fest, I think, with us back in 2013.
Limited exposure, but there are weird moments that creep
Yeah.
out of that from time to time. It's kind of fun.
I'm hoping to get like a good website response at some point.
Mhm.
gotta
Mickey's
get that
actually-
Commerce.
Mickey's been taking care of all the digital.
We have a link
Curating,
for
so-
emails on our
Yes.
website,
yeah.
We do.
but we're just waiting to really get one.
I mean, as long as people have heard of email, they should be able to navigate.
Send your
it.
email to
You got to go through this porthole, basically. We'll send you a link. And,
We're trying to gather
Totally
emails
secure.
right now.
Nothing to worry about.
No.
yes, Portholes is our other psychedelic band. So all about ayahuasca.
I know that leading up to this episode, there were a lot of people who really were looking for a Shyster episode to learn more about the story and the history of the band. So is there anything else out there that's going on besides the one-off show for Shyster that you want to talk about?
I'm trying to do an OG reunion, but Jeff's in California, Ryan's in New York. And these are the guys that we did our first tours with, did Say Uncle with, did February with. And it's Shyster in some ways, from the first years. And so I definitely am constantly trying to get them to come down. It's harder for Jeff to get away from his work and make that long trek out to Florida from California to do that. But, we're always talking about it and we're hoping to make it happen. But I also have a few Shyster songs that I remember that never got recorded. And I have this little studio now. So I'm trying to get some guitar tracks down that I send then to Jeff as sort of an OG recording just for.
He's using this new technology called email.
Yeah.
Put it in the Dropbox.
A super retro. I like the songs, they just never got recorded because of like certain conditions of time and stuff.
Yeah.
So get them down. And Shyster of, my bands gets a little more, internet hits.
And because Jeff and Brian were not able to partake in this, talk just for a moment about their contributions and how important they were in the story of Shyster.
Brian was a good friend of mine in high school.
Yeah.
And he used to drive me to Tampa to go to Alternative Records and Thoroughbred Music, like the record store and the music equipment store. And we used to always go on these jaunts there. He also drove me to Spring Break, Daytona Beach to see shows. And we hung out in high school. His grandmother lived across the street from my parents. So before I ever knew him, we would be mowing the lawns across the street from each other. Glaring at each other.
Yeah.
Because he was like a Sharpie kind of skinhead and I was like a long-haired like Slayer metalhead. And we would like glare at each other from across this suburban like avenue before we ever became friends.
That's part of the idea for the video game. Both take the lawnmowers at each other and the blades clash. And
There was a vibe.
Kind of like Mortal Kombat, but Snapper and John Deere.
Brian was a great guitar player. He's fucking fast as shit. And Jeff was an amazing drummer, fast as shit.
Yeah.
And honestly, they worked very hard along with Greg to book us shows. I was at college for a lot of the time of Shyster, the first years. And so while I was gone, they would just spend their time freaking hounding promoters.
Yeah.
So they were both amazing, like music collaborators. And also they created Shyster by putting us on shows and hounding to get us on a Warped Tour. The reason we played the Warped Tour was because Brian and Jeff, the guy Kevin.
Oh, not Rots, is it?
No, the guy from the Warped Tour, Kevin something. They had his phone number or his email, Kevin, and they would send him messages constantly until he would finally relent and say, "Okay, you can tour with this band." And
What year did you play Warped Tour?
96.
Yeah. No, wait.
First one.
Quicksand.
Yeah,
Wasn't that the first one? 96?
Oh, yeah.
First one.
You're right. Sorry. I thought it was
That was
95.
awesome.
And we played Orlando, we played Fort Lauderdale, we played Tampa. And Tampa was definitely the biggest show we've ever played because Warped Tour was usually divided between inside and outside, but this one was all inside this giant indoor warehouse skate park.
Yeah.
2 stages set up like caddy corner, not caddy corner, but like adjacent to each other.
Yeah.
Like that. And so after one band finished, the other band started and back and forth right there. So we ended up, we were the Orlando support, Florida support, but we were also not the local opener. So
Right.
we were on our stage first and then the first band on the other stage. And so we played third, which was kind of dope as hell.
Oh, yeah.
And there was like thousands of people there. And it was ballistic.
So are there any moments that really stand out to you with some of your favorites or just funny moments getting a chance to play and go on tour?
Well, Shyster touring was amazing because we were young and we didn't give a fuck about whatever. So we could sleep anywhere and go through anything and just have eyes wide open and endless energy. That Shyster touring had a big ass blue van that we made it around the country several times and fixed it a million times too. We spent so much money trying to keep that thing going, but it was like a little home for us.
We got lucky. It still kind of had the church graphics showing through the paint. So I
Yeah,
think they
had
just
some-
thought we were good Christians, like rolling around.
I had some retro text on the side, but we also wanted to kill each other.
Yeah.
And we did one trip through, I think, Pennsylvania, where we decided to each tell each other exactly what we thought of each other.
That was actually the Rocky Mountains.
So
We were going between elevations from snow to like rain.
It's like we couldn't deal with it anymore. We're like, okay, we need to have
Kinda
group
cracked.
therapy. We made up a thing where everyone got to say what they thought about each other person without any talkback.
Yeah.
Of course, everyone told me that I'm an egomaniac. I remember everyone was just like, your ego is fucking through the roof and you're fucking annoying. I was more of an asshole back then, I think, in some ways, but I was always a very nice guy as well.
Well, that's kind of how we got the aggressive out of him. He tried to kill me, I think, when I said that. And Brian pretty much told me to
Back
chill
on.
out and sit back in my seat. And,
But it was the best thing that ever happened to us because after
Yeah.
that, we actually made it through the rest of the tour with no problems at all. We all just like
that was it. We could make
that
it.
was a release of all that
Yeah.
tension and show.
Yeah.
But I mean, we slept in crazy squats. We slept in houses that weren't even built yet. And
We actually,
we played with a band called Swelter in Tacoma that was like
Yeah.
5 people that looked all completely different and they
Yeah.
shredded like you'd never believe.
like, you had the SG
Metalhead,
stack
the
guy.
indie rock guy, the
indie rock.
freaking rapper, and like
Bass player was like,
completely different people.
I think he was like from Afghan Wigs or something. He looked like, and you know, playing a Rickenbacker, you know, drummer had like about 15 toms. And
Mickey got arrested
So-
outside of Louisiana.
Oh yeah.
That was a good time.
On a night.
What'd you do, Mickey?
Mickey didn't have a light on his driver's license. I mean, no, on
No.
his license plate.
Oh,
And so that's where they pulled us over.
No, that was the blue van.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the blue van didn't have a light on it. So
They
the
arrested you for that?
Well, they wanted to search me, and I'm like, okay. And they're like, pull out a little thing of weed. It's like, you know, an eraser's worth. He's like, why didn't you tell me you had weed? I'm like, why would I tell you I had weed? And so it's like, and so they made us search the whole rest of the car. They found like Mike had I think he had a joint.
it's a total classism,
Yeah.
racism, because they didn't arrest me. They arrested me.
They didn't even take my mugshot or fingerprints. I think they just took
No,
your
they just
bail
took my
money,
money.
and then we
They
left.
took, they took band bail money and then we drove. But then, yeah, so that
Yeah.
was kind of fun. But good things also happened.
Yeah.
like there was
We had
the,
amazing shows.
we had one show in Baltimore where apparently we weren't allowed to go anywhere with like outside
The
of a block within this squat. We got in to play the show and realized that the balcony was actually a giant hole in the
roof.
floor upstairs. But
Oh.
you can see about 30 people through it. And then we went home with the girls that owned this like thrift store that they were living in, you know, which is one of the sort of shotgun apartment, like 4-story apartments. I just remember passing out in a pile of stuffed animals. It was about 6 feet high because I had to leave the 3rd floor where the girls were singing like I think Foreigner or something to like Mike and Jeff, like, and all you could hear is these drunk girls going, all right, how and how bad, you know. I was like, yeah, they're trying to go to sleep.
They're trying to go to sleep.
I was like, I gotta get upstairs.
Remember after Gainesville, Henry was driving and he drove us to Georgia
Oh,
instead, and we
yeah.
ran out of gas.
You know what's bad when you're engaged, trying to get to Orlando, and I was sitting shotgun. And Henry's like, Mike, welcome to Georgia. And then about 4 hours later, we're back on the turnpike, and Henry wakes me up again. He's like, Mike, we're out of gas. Pulled over the side of the road, had to go up and play the same freaking trip. And no, good things happened as well. We played a bowling alley in Oklahoma City. Remember that?
We played Fireside Bowl as well.
Oh, we played
Oh,
Fireside.
Did play Fireside Bowl. Yeah, that's one of the more infamous places that a lot of bands have played in Chicago. What was that like?
It was awesome. We played with LES Stitches there.
Yeah,
We always played with there'd be like 2 shows of 5 bands.
yeah.
And I remember totally passing out on stage there because I ran out of oxygen.
Wow.
Literally fell over
There,
like
there was a moment where Mike was out.
too many lyrics in some of those Shyster songs.
Seriously.
I
I think
passed out at Fireside Bowl.
I think if both of us could go back to ourselves back then, we'd be like, "What the hell are you trying to prove, man? Slow down." So
Yeah.
you know,
Well, Jeff was the motor.
Yeah,
He was
that's
a
what
freaking
happened.
Speedboat back there.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, Jeff.
and I was
Jeff-
always arguing with him, like, freaking slow down, man. Just slow down a little bit.
I don't know.
Like, why? Why, man? Why?
If you take a really good listen to Say Uncle, every song starts at the right tempo and ends up going Jeff.
Yeah.
With having played all these different places and all your experiences kind of combined, what do you remember the worst pit you ever saw?
Dallas.
Yeah,
Dallas
was,
at a place called Trees
Trees
Lounge.
Lounge. We had Guttermouth.
Face to face.
We were opening for Guttermouth, Face to Face, and
Limp.
no, it wasn't Limp. It was the Grabbers.
Oh, the
I
Grabbers.
think it was the Grabbers, right?
Yes, Limp was with No Use for a Name.
Yeah, that's right. And
Lagwagon.
basically, I think Mike and I decided to stand on stage, and you basically have like, it's like a warehouse. So you've got I-beams with the stage built kind of around them. And at some point, like, I think the Guttermouth started playing Asshole and basically like bought full beer bottles, started bombarding the stage. Mike and I had to hide behind the I-beams, and you could just see the glass shattering. It was like if you could film it in slow-mo, it would have been
Basically
like,
stopped the show for like
Yeah.
half an hour so
Right.
people would calm down. It was a skinhead brawl. It was
Yeah.
a skinhead brawl. And
That was
Orlando was skinhead brawl in the late 80s, early 90s,
90s,
around
yeah.
90.
Yeah,
And it dissipated, thank
Yeah.
God. But Dallas seemed to, like, they all left and went to Dallas. 'Cause
yeah,
when we were there in 95 and 96, it was probably 96, so we were playing
Yeah.
face to face. It was a skinhead melee, and it was freaking kind of scary, to be honest.
yeah, man. That was one of those moments where you're like, well, if we don't die, hopefully the hospital bill will be low.
We were
But,
off.
We got lucky, man. The I-beam saved.
Yeah.
We did our thing before it got too out of control. But
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
fun.
Did you guys have ever have any injuries playing any shows?
I chipped my tooth at the Faubourg Center in New Orleans on the microphone, and I still have that little space right here on my tooth. I remember like feeling my teeth in my mouth.
Gee.
It's
People
like-
getting rowdy and
Yeah.
pushing it into you.
yeah, pushing it
Yeah.
to me, hitting
Okay.
my
Yeah.
I remember being
That's
like,
a
oh, that's a
hazard.
little piece of my fucking tooth. And then I have a nice little ridge in my tooth now.
John actually recently almost lost his teeth at our curtain show in Ocala. That's
Oh,
Oh,
first
yeah.
time
You
I
guys
seen
yeah.
a
knocked
pit
them
in
out
like
too.
years, but
In
yeah.
Ocala.
I was with the
Went for it.
quickness, fortunately, but
I get a lot of hand blood, but
Yeah,
What happened, John? How did that happen?
oh, just
my-
kids enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And it was a show on the ground in front of said kid. So I think he tripped over the mic stand or maybe my pedal or something
Mm.
and came crashing into me.
yeah. It was
Um,
kind of
it was
like
fine.
yeah.
It was like a
yeah,
quick
it's a mixed
second.
blessing because
Yeah.
you're glad that it's freaking
Yeah.
getting.
like you
Right.
kind of want to see him get rowdy, but the other thing I think is younger generation isn't used to the rowdiness we used to do and doesn't understand like there's kind of rules to it.
I don't
To a
know,
certain
man.
degree.
You haven't seen some of the pits I've seen lately. Those things are like they're doing some
They
crazy
swing,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm also in a metal band, and they're like
Okay.
I see the pits and those things, and those people are like getting like crowd killing and stuff. It
What's
gets
the metal band you're in, Mike? Mickey?
Arcusi with a G at the beginning. Yeah, so it's a grindcore band.
Okay.
They're actually amazingly badass, to be
Yeah.
honest. So
I was going to ask that. So just in terms of like the crowds now and the pits as they are today, is it less crazy as it was back then, or is it the same to you, or is it worse? What do you think?
It seems like I don't know. It seems more violent, but it's one of those things where you're watching them just do elbows and stuff, but nobody ever seems to connect with each other. So that's kind of like
I think
it almost seems
yeah.
like a choreographed dance in a way. Like some pits I've seen, they'll have like a football. They'll like line up and throw a football and then just go crazy. There'll be people like doing like army crawls across a pit. I mean, it seems like for like Instagram hits, but it's also, I mean, they're having a great time.
Yeah.
So
That's important. Yeah.
it seems kind of choreographed sometimes.
I got to
New
give
age rave.
I gotta give a shout out to the ladies of Kona, man. They have come up with some kind of like somewhere between dance pit type of thing, little metal hair swinging. I don't know what it is, but very very impressive, I must say.
When you guys attended shows yourself back in the day, did you find that you were also in the pits, or did you more so stand on the side and watch?
Yeah, I think the roughest pit I was in was actually John Spencer Blues Explosion. Downtown Orlando. I remember, well, I almost got in a fight with a guy who had nearly elbowed a friend of mine in her face. And so it was kind of, yeah, it was definitely, this is one of those, sort of pre Riot Girls kind of things, which I totally understood that movement when it happened as a result of that. But yeah, there was definitely some rough pits. Even like, you had like the Lollapalooza guys with like the long surfer hair and combat boots. And,
That's the guy who knocked me out.
yeah, they try to get crazy, but they like took it too far. And,
Yeah,
thought that was
long hair,
awesome.
combat boots got me in the head at
Yeah.
Mighty Boston's at Janice Landing.
That's a guy.
Knocked
He's
me
out
out.
there.
Knocked me out. That's the guy.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Guy is
but
out there.
I always like to get up front and in the pit a little bit, at the edge of the pit, pushed
Yeah.
up in front, just
Yeah.
because all the energy is flowing. It's just so strong and palpable. And when you let yourself go into a pit scenario, you usually don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Did you feel fortunate kind of where you were in Central Florida? Because you think about a lot of bands that would come down to Florida wouldn't always get down to Miami or Fort Lauderdale. They may stop in like Central Florida or Tampa. Did you feel like you were getting a lot of the bands coming through there? You were able to go to a lot of those shows back then?
think so, but the grass is always greener because we always saw the shows coming to Atlanta, and we're
Yeah.
like, why don't any of these bands come to Orlando?
Or start their tour in
Yeah.
Miami and
Yeah.
go up the coast. Yeah, it never
Right.
made sense to me how they would always seem to. There's been plenty of acts that have never come,
From
like
Orlando.
bigger acts that
Yeah.
they just have never been here
They're just
because
like, we just hit Atlanta and keep cruising through. Why
Yeah.
dip into the little Dingle Peninsula over here?
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know from Miami's point of view what they missed that we got, but we always looked at Atlanta and we're like, why don't y'all come down here?
yeah,
I feel like Gainesville actually connected a lot of that, like, more recently, especially like where, the shows would happen there and then they would, and it's like you'd have a choice between going to Orlando, Miami, or cutting back up, either to the west or the, straight up the East Coast. So, but it seemed like when Gainesville started picking up and Cover Dish and Hardback were doing more stuff, then there was more bands that had a tendency to venture further south.
But we got amazing shows too.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, when I moved to New York, I remember thinking there were so many bands playing in so many venues that I never went to any of them. But in Orlando, there was one venue, basically, two downtown and Wills, 3 venues. And I would see like almost all the cool bands coming through just because that was what there was to do. And that was the thing.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. I like the small city band scenario.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a focal point as
Yeah.
opposed to 100 venues with 10 shows you want to see, and you got to make a choice. So
Are you guys still going to a lot of shows, or have you kind of tamed that down a bit since everyone's kind of gotten older and settled down?
I go to a ton of shows still.
Mickey is our representative.
Yeah,
out in the
I love
scene.
seeing that. I went out like Wednesday. I saw a band from Tijuana called Habak that just blew my mind, and I love that. You're just out, not having a good time, seeing a local band, some band from somewhere that you've never seen. Yeah, I love that.
I try to get out, but it's a little harder with the kids.
yeah, I think
Certainly more selective.
more selective for myself. And I basically have like kicked a lot of bad habits, so I'm still. It's got to kind of outdo my associative, my negative association with things to bring me forward into it.
It's hard to go to a show without drinking, and so
Yeah.
it's really hard. But
it's also hard to drink a ton of seltzer water and have to use the bathroom every 10 minutes. And that like somebody's in there partying or whatever. So,
What was one of your favorite beers to drink when you were playing?
like the one with bubbles. In it.
Got you drunk?
Yeah.
whatever we
That was
get
the
from
best
bar,
usually.
Yeah.
whatever they were giving.
Right.
Remember when we played in Houston, they'd always give us drink tickets for Shiner Bock.
Oh yeah.
And I just thought that was kind of neat. I just remember that for some reason. I'm like, oh, this isn't Bud Light or
Yeah, it was
That's
something
gonna-
that wasn't.
PBR.
Yeah.
It's nice when we
PBR.
play Monufest. They're always sponsored by Cigar City.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
decent beers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever play with any straight edge bands?
Probably.
Yeah, I think what was Cato's name?
Greening.
Yeah, well, Greening, like back in the day, Greening definitely was straight edge. God, and
I think
Shadow was.
I think Laughing Boy might have either played with 411 or
Yeah,
Earth Crisis, but I went to see the show or I just all hazy over in Melbourne.
Laughing
Yeah.
Boy was kind of straight edge anyway.
Yeah, well, Jim was.
Jim.
Dave and I definitely were not. That's why I don't remember all of that.
Jim had to be.
Yeah, like he was the
These
one
guys
driving.
are, right? Yeah.
So what do you guys have upcoming next for Curtains? When's the next recording album coming out?
We're almost finished with this record. We're playing all these shows right now. I play with the Hamiltons too. We got like 4 shows in October, 1 in September. We're doing this big show we're practicing our asses off for at the end of September on the 29th at Will's, part of the history thing. And then Monufest is in October, and we're playing a show upcoming in Orlando before that. And so around the end of October. Do we have any other curtain shows?
I don't think so.
End of October.
We're asking
Curtains
you,
coming
do we
back.
have any other curtains?
Yeah.
Let us
that
know.
pulled up. The end of October, Curtains is doing things, and then other than that, we're working on the record. And we've got it pretty much recorded. We have a few things to re-record and then mix, and then it'll be 10 songs done here in the house. So it's pretty fun.
We're
And
taking
it's-
off.
Yeah. Anything different to expect with the new record? Are you any different direction of that album, or pretty much a continuation of what you've been doing?
It's
Yeah,
sorry.
Dan.
We're kind of, we have like different, I don't know, I'd look at most of the songs as like its own entity kind of thing. Mike is getting into engineering and recording stuff. We're still working with Mikey Cortez, by the way, who was the guitarist on some of the other stuff that we put out. And he's also an engineer. He lives in Canada now. That's Mikey from the Attack. And basically trying to find a kind of collaboration with some of the mixing stuff he has and do our own stuff, as well as definitely tracking all of our own stuff in-house in studio. The working title Zeus Apollo, which is some ridiculous thing that we came up with. We'll have a spokesperson for that. It's probably just going to be me with a backwards hat and
Tinfoil.
yeah, exactly.
I think the other Curtis recordings have been very straightforward, hard punk rock for the most part, and this one's got a little of that and a little of other stuff, which may be reminiscent more of kind of New Lows mix. It's a mix of different tempos and styles and speeds, so it's not like that full-on Curtains raw, which is what created Curtains, but it wasn't something I was interested in just pretend,
Right. You guys have any favorite covers to play as Curtains?
Anything by Husker Du?
That is a
we did a Husker Du set, and that was kind of like way too much work for the day off. But
that sounds fun though.
It was
fun.
It was learning that shit, but
you start to realize you couldn't be in Husker Du though.
I don't think we do any other covers. We do a Healthy Body, Sick Mind by Operation Ivy.
Yeah,
That's something we like to bust out of practice. We do bass fishing. We do a little Thunder Reaction, but those are basically covering our old,
I'm still trying to get
challenge
into
ourselves.
do some Gorilla Biscuits, Forgotten, but now that they're playing Fest, I'm kind of like, maybe we'll just go see the real thing.
What have we covered? We covered shit?
Maybe some Descendants. I don't
We
know.
never covered.
I don't think we've ever covered anything.
No.
I think we played a little bit of Cro-Mags, but
No.
that was before I'd actually listened to the song, so I'm sure it sounded like, what's that guy doing? I thought we were doing like Grateful Dead or something, like another Garcia
did,
We
tribute.
covered something.
New Lows did
We used to do Buzzcocks a lot.
yeah, Buzzcock,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I was thinking.
The New Lows did a lot of Buzzcocks covers, a couple of Buzzcocks covers, because I just got so into that.
Well, guys, it's been great getting a chance to have you all on and tell the story of not just Shyster, but also we talked about Curtains, Laughing Boy, the New Lows, and a lot of other things in between. So I'd like to kind of give each of you an opportunity to kind of close out. Any final comments you wanted to make, last words, so to speak. So we can go left to right. Mickey, if you want to start us off and go to the end to John. So any last comments you wanted to add before we wrap things up today?
Now that I'll probably be playing with these guys for a while because it doesn't seem like we're ever going to stop. So
fun.
it is fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's all I got.
Well, for me, it's I just feel really lucky that I've been able to somehow coerce and convince people to always come and play with me and flesh out my songs. It's a blessing because I love making songs up, and then when other people collaborate in them and they become this much greater thing, and it's an awesome collaboration as any band would be, of songs coming together, sounds coming together, but also just like my friends, my boys, my hangout, my scenario. It's huge for me personally. So I feel just so freaking lucky for all the ups and downs and shitty shows and great shows, and anybody hears us, someone discovered like little moments of what a band is. It's always about this right here with us and creating the act of creation.
Yeah.
And then you do, that's fucking cool. Let's share it with somebody just to get out there and not just make it our practice space. But the practice space is what I love the most because this is freaking so fun. And we sound amazing in here sometimes. The other thing I just want to point out is that I've played with some amazing and beautiful people over the years, and some people didn't all survive like we have, like Ralph Amaduri and Matt Gersting. Our bandmates that
Passed away.
that passed away, and so I always carried them with me too, and all the stuff I do.
Well, I mean, I just can't afford a therapist. So even though the problem is here, I still keep coming back to it. So it really does satisfy the masochism in me. And on top of that, like, I really feel like I got to have a reason to go out into the world and you know, basically give something to people. You know, I don't want to just take out of this dimension and not give back to it. And I've met people who have told me how even, you know, just Shyster or whatever, these things that we've done before have changed their life. So if there's one person out there that feels that way, then I got to keep doing it. You know, that's basically the foundation where I'm at with it. Plus, I need friends to look cool on Instagram and stuff like that. So I put them in the pictures. You know, I think they're cuter than me. I don't know. We're kind of like a boy band for like women who are divorced and in their late 40s. So,
Bad eyesight.
yeah. If you're thinking about it,
Can't hear it too well.
the Curtains calendar will be coming out after. I'll give it to John.
Yeah, no, part of everything these guys have said. I'm grateful to have such good friends, to be able to have a creative space where we can hash out ideas. Obviously, we've all come together because we've done this our whole lives, and it doesn't want to stop. Like there's something in us, and it's nice to have like minds. We're like family, and we can be goofy or we can be, you know, smart and figure things out. And it's really cool to have all of that. It's therapy. It's group therapy. And when we don't practice for a week or we get off, we have a rhythm and then we get off the rhythm. I spin a little bit. I think like, I don't have this to do today. You know, like kind of keeps me centered, and it's the goal and the creative spark. So I think just being grateful for all of this and for you for asking about it. But yeah, it's going to keep happening. Probably keep doing it for a while because it's awesome.